Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper analysis. Today we have taken New Delhi edition of The Hindu newspaper dated 28th March 2023. Topics for today's discussion are displayed on your screen. Let's begin the discussion. Inspiration for this discussion comes from this news which featured on page number 12 of The Hindu newspaper. Now, state of Bihar is going to begin the second phase of caste-based survey from April the 15th. It is going to use a mobile app for the same, and the survey has been named as Bihar Jati Adharit Ganna, that is BJGA. Now, statisticians and experts have raised concern over the integrity of the data, as the collectors have been given an instruction or direction to not to insist on any kind of verification document. So whatever the respondent is claiming, in terms of their caste and categories is to be taken as true fact. And due to this, experts are raising concern over the objectivity and integrity of the data. Now, if you will look into General Studies Paper 1, salient features of Indian society has been clearly mentioned. And as you may know, that caste system is a unique system of social structure prevalent in Indian subcontinent. Similar systems are prevailing in some parts of the world. However, caste system in its form and with its characteristic are unique to the Indian society. And contrary to the broader understanding that it is a feature of Hindu society only, the caste system prevalent in India has percolated to different religions like Sikhism, Islam, and Christianity also. If you will look further, UPSC has been asking questions based on the caste system. As in 2018, it has asked to comment that caste system cannot be eradicated in India because it is assuming new identities and associational forms. Similarly, it has asked a question in 2020 that has caste lost its relevance in understanding the multicultural Indian society? You had to elaborate your answer with illustration. We are taking up this discussion in the light of the caste survey and the census exercise. So in this discussion, we will be covering what is census, what is caste census, what has been the history of census in India, why there is a demand for caste census, what are the significance of caste census, and what are the concerns associated with it. So let's begin the discussion. Now, India has a history of around 130 years of compilation of caste data starting in the year of 1872. Now, the Indian census has been an attractive source of data for scholars and researchers in demography, economics, anthropology, sociology, statistics, and many other streams. So, in crux, census is not just an empirical compilation of data, it is a tool to understand Indian society at a deeper level. Now, what is a census? If you will go by the crude definition, a population census is the process of collecting, compiling, analyzing, and disseminating demographic, social, cultural, and economic data relating to all persons in the country at a particular time in 10 years interval. So what has been the history of census in India? Is it a modern day phenomena or it has its roots in the history of India? Now there are various literary evidences that shows that census is a practice of ancient as well as medieval times. The earliest literature, that is Rig Veda, reveals that some kind of population count was maintained during 800 to 600 BC. Apart from this, Kautilya's Arthashastra, written around 321 to 296 BC, laid stress on census taking as measure of state policy for purpose of taxation. In medieval times, during the regime of Mughal king Akbar, the administrative report, that is Ain-e-Akbari, included comprehensive data pertaining to population, industry, wealth, and many other characteristics. If you will refer to the modern times and particularly in pre-independence India, in the year 1872, the first census was conducted in a non-synchronous manner in different parts of country. It was done during the reign of the Viceroy Lord Mayo. Now, one thing that should be kept in mind that this census did not cover all territories possessed or controlled by the British. The first synchronous census exercise was done in the year 1881 and it was undertaken by W.C. Plowden, who was the then Census Commissioner of India. And it was the first great step towards modern synchronous census. Now, India got independence in the year 1947. The Bhore Committee was constituted for making plans for post-war development in the field of health. And it recommended that the population problem should be the subject of central studies. And accordingly, the Census Act of 1948 came into force. All the censuses of post-independence era were conducted as per the provisions of this act only. The first census of independent India was conducted in the year 1951. And as the Bhore Committee recommended, the exercise of the census has been kept under the Union list of 7th schedule. And that is the reason why Bihar is terming its exercise as survey and not the census, because it is domain of the central government. Now, as per the provision of the Census Act of 1948, the responsibility of conducting the decadal census rests with the Office of the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India, which comes under the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. Now, the second point of discussion which should come into mind, that if there is a census exercise which has been going on regularly, why there is demand of caste census and what does it mean? So caste census simply means inclusion of caste-wise tabulation of India's population in the census exercise. Now why there is this demand? Now from 1951 to 2011, every census in India has published the population of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, comprising the Dalits and the Adivasis, along with the gamut of data including religions, languages, socio-economic status, etc. However, it has never counted OBCs, which are lower and intermediate caste and which according to Mandal Commission make up around 52% of the country's population. All castes other than scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are counted under the general category in normal census exercise. This is where the demand for caste census comes from. The first census, which began in 1872 and the periodic count in 1881 under British rule, since then, data on caste was always included till the year 1931. The caste count was excluded for 1941 census because of administrative and financial issues with England, which was involved in World War II. Thus, the count of OBCs is therefore available for 1931 only, when their share of the population was found about 52%. So, this data is not the current data. It is based on the census of 1931, and since then, India's population has grown manifold. Now, this demand has been persistent. And to be very precise, this demand raises its head mainly around the elections, because this chunk of population forms a very big vote bank. Now, if you will look at the latest developments, in 2010, the UPA government partially conceded to the demand of the caste census. Though caste enumeration was not done as part of the census 2011, but a separate socio-economic caste census, that is SECC, was conducted in the same year of 2011. Later, this raw data was handed over to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it is lying with them since then. Government has never made this data public. Even after promising a committee to study through these data under the leadership of Arvind Pangaria, the then Niti Aayog chief, no progress has been made so far vis-a-vis caste related data. So to understand the need and challenges related to caste census, we must refer to the Rohini Commission, which was constituted in the year 2017 under the chairmanship of Justice G. Rohini. This commission was constituted under Article 340 of the Constitution with mandate is to examine issues of subcategorization within other backward classes, that is OBC, in central list. What this committee found? It found that 97% of all jobs and educational seats have gone just 25% of all subcaste classified. So basically, when there is a subcategorization of OBC, the 25% of these subcategories have garnered benefit of around 97% in terms of jobs and educational seats. So there is a clear disparity and benefits of affirmative action are not reaching to the lowest strata. Apart from this, it also found that at around 25% of these jobs and seats went to just 10 OBC communities. It further says 983 OBC communities, that is 1/3 of the total, had almost zero representation in jobs and admission in educational institution. So it is not just a matter of inequality, it is also a matter of complete exclusion. So the committee proposed to divide 27% reservation for the castes on the central list into 4 subcategories. Now, on what basis these subcategorization or division can be done if you don't have a caste specific data? So the next part we will discuss the significance as well as concern over the demand of caste related data. So first is need for caste based census. The first point is rationalization of benefits. Now objective analysis of change in demography will help in rationalizing affirmative action. Present reservation and other welfare scheme entitlements to OBC are still based on the population estimate of year 1931. So with the current data and present status, the policy making and their directions would be more objective and would be helpful in reaching to those who are needy. Second is assessment of impact of affirmative action. A socio-economic caste census would help in assessing how far the extension of reservation to OBCs have benefited them. As you have already seen in Rohini Commission report that there are only few who are siding with major benefits. So government will be able to assess the impact of their affirmative action and then can formulate or modify their policy actions. Another issue is issue of social justice. As we have seen in first 2 points, it will help government's welfare schemes to reach the most backwards and deprived castes that have been marginalized till date. Experts believe the economic status of dominant OBC castes have improved in the past 80 years and certain castes have not benefited as much. It will also help in minimizing exclusion and inclusion errors. As you have seen, it will help in rationalizing reservation policy as per need of a specific caste or community. Now, land fragmentation and decades of agriculture stagnation have turned many upper caste landowners into marginal farmers. Whereas rising rural wage has benefited some of the backward classes, including Dalits. So it will help in identifying those to be excluded and those that must be included in the policy actions or government assistance. Now another need lies in the need for scientific data to addressing contemporary demands. There has been demands to expand OBC reservation, which is at presently capped at 50%. Now, proponent of such demand claim this as arbitrary criteria. And there has been a demand of inclusion of dominant caste like Jats, Kapus, Patidar and Marathas into OBC categories. Often these demands are not based on scientific evidences, hence a caste-based socio-economic census will bring out the real picture and will help government to take decision on the same. Now another need lies in the OBC subcategorization, as you have seen highlighted in the Commission's report. OBC membership is large and heterogeneous, with vast intra-caste differences in socio-economic conditions. Some better off groups among OBC caste have cornered a disproportionately large share of seats reserved for OBCs, giving rise to demand of sub-classification of various caste groups among OBCs also. Caste-based socio-economic census will help in such classification. Now, last but not the least, there is a constitutional mandate also under Article 340, which calls for appointment of a commission to investigate the condition of backward classes. Now, such investigations must be backed by certain objective data, which can only be achieved through a separate caste-based census. So in crux, you might realize that most of the arguments are centered around bringing rationality and objectivity in government actions in improving the conditions of backward classes. So why there are voices against such caste-based census? We will take up this part in concerns against caste-based census. The first concern is the subversion of India's anti-caste struggle. Our constitution, social reform movement and forces of modernity have long aspired for annihilation of caste. Now, a caste-based census would be an exact contradictory step if we claim to have an aim of annihilation of caste system altogether. Because on one hand, we are talking about eliminating this institution altogether. On the other hand, we are talking about further empowering this institution. Second concern is reinforcement of caste identities. Now, enumeration of castes might reinforce caste identities which is already prevalent in the society. Now, as we have discussed earlier, that this demand raises its head mainly around elections. Vote bank politics is another concern. Caste-wise data may be used as tool for caste-based political mobilization. Now, clear idea of numbers about OBCs might provide a new issue to the regional parties to mount pressure on the center for an OBC quota in central government jobs and educational institution. Apart from this, there are federal concerns too, as according to the 7th schedule of the Constitution, census is in the domain of the Union. Thus, the state governments conducting their own caste census is against constitutional spirit, as apart from Bihar, state of Maharashtra and Odisha has also passed the resolution in same spirit. So what is the way ahead? While caste-based OBC enumeration is necessary for documenting discrimination, understanding current social economic conditions of various castes, and developing policy to distribute resources in the correct proportion, a full caste census might be little controversial and cumbersome. For Indian society is divided into roughly 3,000 castes and around 25,000 subcastes. If the state plans to use caste as a criteria for distribution of resources, it may create confusion and anarchy in the policy making. Now, inspiration for our next discussion comes from this news, which featured on page number 14 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, following the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's high-level meeting earlier this month to review the heat wave preparedness, a new report by the think tank Center for Policy Research on how is India adapting to heat waves indicates that the country is ill prepared to face the heat. Now, this think tank analyzed all the 37 heat action plans across 18 states to evaluate how policy action is keeping up with the warming weather in India, and found that most HAPs, that is, heat action plans, are not built for local contexts. It also found that nearly all HAPs fail to identify and target vulnerable groups and are underfunded with weak legal foundations and are insufficiently transparent. Now, if you will relate it to your UPSC syllabus, GS paper 1 mentions important geophysical phenomena such as earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclone, etc. Further, if you will try to trace the UPSC previous year question, you will find this topic important from the perspective of prelims as well as mains examination. As in 2020, UPSC has asked a question based on important geophysical phenomena, that is, occurrence of jet stream and cyclones. Now try to attempt this question and let us know your answer in the comment box given below. Now if you will look at the mains examination, UPSC in 2020 has again asked a question based on desertification, which is a geophysical phenomena which has been aggravated due to rising issue of climate change. Similarly, it has asked a question based on cryosphere effect on global climate in 2017. Again in 2017, UPSC has asked a question based on tsunami. It has asked factors responsible for occurrence of tsunami as well as NDMA guidelines for preparedness to reduce risk during such events. Now, extreme heat poses an unprecedented challenge to health and productivity. As landmark heat waves in 1998, 2002, 2010, 2015 and 2022 have each led to large death tolls. So to understand impact of heat waves on different sectors like agriculture, energy system, let's understand what is heat wave, what is the criteria IMD has given for declaring heat wave, favorable condition for heat waves, impacts of heat waves and resilience strategies for extreme heat as suggested by IMD and NDMA. So let's begin our discussion. Let us begin our discussion by understanding what is heat wave. So if talking qualitatively, it is nothing but a condition of air temperature which becomes fatal to human body when exposed. So it is a situation of high prevailing air temperature. Now, if you will talk quantitatively, it is defined based on the temperature thresholds over a region in terms of actual temperature or its departure from the normal temperature. And in case of India, IMD decides the criteria of this threshold, that is how much up and above the normal temperature, that is departure, can be termed as heat wave, and what threshold of actual temperature can be termed as heat waves. We will take up these criteria in subsequent discussions. Now, in certain countries, it is defined in terms of heat index also, which is based on temperature and humidity or based on extreme percentile of the temperatures. Now, in case of India, heat wave is period of abnormally high temperature more than the normal maximum temperature that occurs during summer season in the northwestern part of India. Heat waves typically occur between March and June and in some rare cases even extend till July. Extreme temperatures and resultant atmospheric conditions adversely affect people living in these regions as they cause physiological stress, sometimes resulting into death also. Now, as you learned here that in some countries heat index is being used to define the heat wave. Now, IMD is also planning to issue heat index across country using various models, and it is terming it as real feel. Now, component for this real feel or HI index will include relative humidity, wind speed, maximum temperature and cloud cover. And warning will be based on this criteria. Now, what is heat index? Heat index is the combination of air temperature and relative humidity. Now, relative humidity is the percentage of moisture present in the atmosphere as compared to its full capacity at a given temperature. So, numerically speaking, it is ratio between actual amount of water vapor in air, that is absolute humidity, to the humidity as saturation point, that is maximum water vapor air can hold at any given temperature, and it is represented in terms of percentage. So heat index measures of how hot it really feels, as the name suggests, the real feel, when relative humidity is factored in with the actual air temperature. So having seen the basic concept, let us discuss what are the criteria for declaring heat waves. And you know, in India, IMD, that is India Meteorological Department, is entrusted with the task of declaring heat waves. Now you have already learned that heat waves are declared on the basis of actual maximum temperature and based on departure from the normal. So it is different for different regions, namely plains, hills and coastal areas. Now heat wave is considered if maximum temperature of a station reaches at least 40 degrees Celsius or more for plains and at least 30 degrees Celsius or more for hilly region. And for coastal region, it is considered as heat wave when maximum temperature is 37 degree or more. Now, based on departure from normal temperature, heat waves can be categorized into normal heat wave and severe heat wave. Now, when departure from normal is in the range of 4.5 degree to 6.4 degrees Celsius, it is termed as heat wave. While when departure is greater than 6.4 degrees Celsius, it is termed as severe heat wave. Let us understand with a simple example. Now, if average normal temperature of any region or location at a particular time of the year, let's say, remains at 38 degrees Celsius. Now, if this temperature in any given particular year raises to 43 degrees Celsius, then IMD declares the area to be facing heat wave. But if the temperature in any particular year goes beyond 44.4 degrees Celsius, then IMD declares that area is facing severe heat wave. Now similarly, based on actual maximum temperature, IMD categorizes areas into heat wave or facing severe heat wave. And for declaring an area facing heat wave, the actual maximum temperature should be greater than or equal to 45 degrees Celsius. While for severe heat wave, it should be greater than or equal to 47 degrees Celsius. So what are the major regions which face heat wave in India? If in terms of region, the northwestern India along with central India and eastern peninsula faces severe heat wave. From the map you can see states like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha, eastern part of Maharashtra state, etc. face severe heat wave. It doesn't mean other areas are immune. Sometimes areas like Tamil Nadu and Kerala also face heat wave when the threshold crosses the limit set by the IMD. However, the temperature in range of more than 50 degrees Celsius is generally witnessed in northwest India, particularly in Rajasthan and Vidarbha region of the Maharashtra. So what are the favorable conditions for heat wave to occur? First is prevalence of hot dry air over a region. Now there should be a region of warm dry air and appropriate flow pattern for transporting hot air over the region. Now this seamless transportation of hot, warm and dry air raises the temperature of an area. Now second criteria is absence of moisture in the upper atmosphere, as presence of moisture restricts the temperature rise. And that can be substantiated with the first point also, as it talks about prevalence of dry air, that is air having low or no moisture content. Now, third criteria is the sky should be practically cloudless. The cloudless sky allows maximum insulation to reach to the surface of the earth, thus further aggravating or accentuating the rise in temperature of the surface of earth. Now, last favorable condition is the large amplitude anticyclonic flow over an area. Now, contrary to the normal understanding that a high temperature area would always be associated with a low pressure zone, a high pressure atmospheric anticyclonic condition would stop the air from rising above. Now, this high pressure upper atmospheric circulation will restrict the air to rise above and will create a situation like a lid, thus creating a phenomena called heat dome, which will help in increasing the temperature of the said region. Now, in India, heat wave majorly develop over northwest India and spread gradually eastward and southward, but not westward, since the prevailing winds during this season are generally westerly. But on some occasions, heat waves may also develop over any region in situ under the favorable conditions. Now, let us look into what are the impacts of heat waves. First is impacts related to health. It typically involves dehydration, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat strokes. Now, heat wave also impacts the agriculture in an adverse manner. High temperature can be damaging to the agriculture. Plant growth is negatively impacted by high daytime temperature, and some crops require cool night temperature. Apart from this, heat wave also increase the chances of livestock experiencing heat stress, especially when nighttime temperatures remain high and animals are unable to cool off. Heat stressed cattle can experience decline in milk production, slower growth, and reduced consumption rates. Heat waves can also aggravate the condition of droughts and wildfires, which can further lead to negative impacts on the agriculture sector. Now, warmer temperatures affect many aspects of the energy system, including production, transmission, and demand. While higher summer temperatures increases electricity demand for cooling, at the same time they can lower the ability of transmission lines to carry the power, leading to electricity reliability issues like rolling blackouts during heat waves. As you can see, heat waves and its impact can adversely affect mankind and its proposition. It is important to roll out heat action plans in regions vulnerable to heat waves. Mitigation is of immediate concern regarding high summer temperatures and subsequent heat waves. Both short-term measures like advisories and long-term measures like afforestation must be simultaneously acted upon. So, in light of such suggestions, there are some resilience strategies that has been suggested by IMD as well as NDMA. First is identifying vulnerable populations and creating heat preparedness plan with all residents in mind, which may include steps like opening cooling centers during periods of extreme heat and adopting workplace heat stress standards. Second is installing cool and green roofs and cool pavement to reduce the urban heat island effect. Third is plantation of trees to provide shade and to cool the air through evapotranspiration. Next strategy suggests persuasion of energy efficiency to reduce demand on electricity grid, especially during heat waves. Another strategy includes reduction of concretization in urban areas, which contributes to the formation of a phenomena called urban heat island. Another strategy includes adoption of architectural designs suitable to reduce heat load on built structure. Now, some emergency measures like democratization of access to public cool spaces in adverse heat waves. For example, metro stations with air-cooled atmosphere should be made accessible to poor. Now, as we discussed earlier, that there is a suggestion that IMD should start measuring heat index and wet bulb temperature, Now we have already understood what is heat index. Let us quickly understand what is wet bulb temperature. In simpler terms, wet bulb temperature tells us at what level our bodies will be unable to cool themselves down by sweating. In this case, the threat of heat stroke rises dramatically. Wet bulb temperature combines heat and humidity to indicate how much evaporation can be absorbed into the air. It measures the lowest temperature that our body can reach when we are in hotter environment by sweating. So we have already seen that in line with this suggestion, IMD is going to calculate heat index, that is real feel, for sending warnings across the country. Our next discussion is based on this news which featured on page number 13 of the Hindu newspaper. The government on Monday completed its budgetary exercise for the year 2023-2024, with both houses of parliament approving the financial bill of 2023, along with a fresh amendment introduced by Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to rectify an error in the securities transaction tax rates on option contracts in the earlier version of the bill. Now, if you will look into the General Studies Paper 2 syllabus, Parliament and State Legislature structure, functioning, conduct of business, etc. has been mentioned. Now, this discussion is particularly focused upon prelims perspective. As you can see, UPSC has been asking questions based on various kinds of bill introduced in Parliament. As in 2018, it has specifically asked a question based on provisions related to money bill. Now try to attempt this question and let us know your answer in the comments box given below. Now the financial bill and money bill are closely related. Financial bills are those bills that deal with fiscal matters, that is revenue or expenditure. Constitution uses the term financial bill in technical sense. Financial bills are of three kinds. First is money bill, which has been mentioned in Article 110 of the Constitution. The other two are Financial Bill 1 and Financial Bill 2, which have found their mention in Article 117 subclause 1 and subclause 3 respectively. So in this discussion, we will be looking at what is a money bill, what is the procedure for passing of money bill in Parliament, and what are finance bills and how are they different or similar from money bills. So let's begin the discussion. Now first have a look what is a money bill. Now Article 110 of the Indian Constitution deals with the definition of money bill. It states that a bill is deemed to be money bill if it contains only provisions dealing with all or any of the following matters. And those matters are the imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax. Second is the regulation of the borrowing of money by union government. Third is the custody of the Consolidated Fund of India or the Contingency Fund of India, the payment of money into or withdrawal of money from any such fund, that is Consolidated Fund of India or Contingency Fund of India. The appropriation of money out of the Consolidated Fund of India. Declaration of any expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or increasing the amount of any such expenditure. So all the salaries and expenditures that you have learned while reading polity that are charged upon Consolidated Fund of India, any change, any alteration or any addition will be done through a money bill only. Another matter involves the receipt of money on account of Consolidated Fund of India or the public account of India or the custody or issue of such money, or the audit of the accounts of the union or state, or any matter incidental to any of the matters specified above. However, a bill is not to be deemed to be money bill by a reason only that it provides for the imposition of fines or other pecuniary penalties, or the demand or payment of fees for licenses or fees for services rendered, or the imposition, abolition, remission, alteration, or regulation of any tax by any local authority or body for local purposes. So, while a bill which is dealing with these matters are termed as money bill, a bill cannot be termed as money bill if it only deals with following matters and does not include these matters. And if any question arises whether a bill is a money bill or not, the decision of a speaker of the Lok Sabha is final. His decision in this regard cannot be questioned in any court of law or in either house of parliament or even the president. When a money bill is transmitted to Rajya Sabha for recommendation and presented to the president for assent, the speaker endorses it as a money bill. Now let us have a look at the procedure for passing the money bill in parliament. Now the constitution lays down a special procedure for the passing of money bill in the parliament. A money bill can only be introduced in Lok Sabha, and that too on the recommendation of president. So the first important point that should be kept in mind is that money bill cannot be introduced in Rajya Sabha. Now, after discussion and passage in Lok Sabha, the bill gets transmitted to the Rajya Sabha. Now, Rajya Sabha cannot reject or amend a money bill. So, why it is transmitted? Rajya Sabha can make recommendations. It must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, whether with or without recommendation. Now, after this recommendation, bill gets returned to the Lok Sabha. Now, Lok Sabha can either accept or reject all or any of the recommendation. If Lok Sabha accepts any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have been passed by both the houses in modified form, because Lok Sabha has accepted the recommendations and bill is modified now. If the Lok Sabha does not accept any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have passed by both the houses in the form originally passed by Lok Sabha without any change. Now, in case if Rajya Sabha does not return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, the bill is again deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the form originally passed by the Lok Sabha. Thus, Lok Sabha has clearly more powers than Rajya Sabha in regard to money bill. Now finally, when money bill is presented to the president, he may either give his assent to the bill or withhold the assent. But he cannot return the bill for reconsideration of the houses. Normally, the president gives his assent to money bill as it was introduced on the recommendation of the president only. Now, another important thing that you can trace out from this information, that there is no chance of any disagreement between the two houses, and hence there is no provision of joint sitting in case of the money bill. Now, as you know, Article 117 subclause 1 deals with the Financial Bill 1. Now, Financial Bill 1 is a bill that contains not only any or all the matters mentioned in Article 110, but also other matters of general legislation. So in simpler terms, you can understand by this that while money bill involves matters exclusively mentioned in Article 110, Financial Bill 1 can have matters mentioned under Article 110 along with some other matters which are not mentioned in Article 110. That is, matters of general legislation. For example, if a bill that contains borrowing clause but does not exclusively deal with borrowing but to some other matters also, it cannot be termed as money bill because it is containing some matters which are outside the purview of Article 110. It will be termed as Financial Bill 1. Now, what is the similarity between Money Bill and Financial Bill 1? First is both of them can be introduced only in Lok Sabha and not in Rajya Sabha. Second, both of them can be introduced only on the recommendation of the President. In all other respects, a Financial Bill 1 is governed by the same legislative procedure as applicable to an ordinary bill. Hence, it can be either rejected or amended by the Rajya Sabha, as was not the case with the money bill. Second, in case of disagreement between the two houses over such a bill, the president can summon a joint sitting of the two houses to resolve the deadlock, which was again not the case with the money bill. And then when the bill is presented to the president, he can either give his assent or withhold his assent for the bill, as was the case with money bill. In financial bill 1, president can also return the bill for reconsideration of the house, as was not the case with the money bill. Now the third type of fiscal instrument is financial bill 2. A financial bill 2 contains provisions involving expenditure from Consolidated Fund of India and does not include any of the matters mentioned in Article 110. Again, it is treated as an ordinary bill, and in all respect it is governed by the same legislative procedures as is the case with the ordinary bill. The only special feature of this bill is that it cannot be passed by either house of the parliament unless the president has recommended to that house the consideration of the bill. Hence, Financial Bill 2 can be introduced in either house of the parliament, and recommendation of the president is not necessary for its introduction. In other words, you can say the recommendation of president is not required at the introduction stage but is required at consideration stage. Now, similar to that of Financial Bill 1, it can either be rejected or amended by either house of the parliament, and to break a deadlock, president can summon a joint sitting of two houses to resolve the same. Now, when the bill is presented to the president, he can either give his assent to the bill, withhold his assent to the bill, or return the bill for the reconsideration of the house. So let us now take up some news which are important from the perspective of prelims examination. As inspiration for this discussion is based on this news which featured on page number 1 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, investors in the popular small saving schemes Public Provident Fund, that is PPF, and Sukanya Samriddhi account, that is SSA, whose rates have not been hiked since January 2019, are unlikely to get higher returns anytime soon. This is because the government is no longer in complete agreement with the Shyamala Gopinathan Committee formula adopted in the year 2016 to reset small saving interest rates every quarter in line with the prevailing yields on government bonds of comparable tenures. Now, UPSC has been asking questions based on important schemes and missions that have been launched by the Government of India. As in 2016, it has asked a question based on features of Mission Indradhanush. Now try to attempt this question and let us know your answer in the comment box given below. We have also provided you a practice MCQ which is based on the subsequent discussion on Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. So now let us take up the discussion and then try to solve this question after the discussion ends. Now, what is Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana? It is a small saving scheme for girl child launched under Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao. It was launched on 22nd January 2015 in Panipat, Haryana by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It is administered under Ministry of Finance and objective is aimed at the betterment of the girl child in the country by abolishing sex determination, gender discrimination, protection of girls, and higher participation of girls in education and other fields. The basic provisions of the schemes are listed below. Minimum deposit rupees 250 while maximum deposit is rupees 1.5 lakh in a financial year. Account can be opened in the name of a girl child till she attains the age of 10 years. Only one account can be opened in the name of a girl child. Accounts can be opened in post offices and in authorized banks. Withdrawal shall be allowed for the purpose of higher education of the account holder to meet education expenses. The account can be prematurely closed in case of marriage of girl child after her attaining the age of 18 years. The account can be transferred anywhere in India from one post office to another. The account shall mature on completion of a period of 21 years from the date of opening of account. The rate of interest is decided by the government and is determined on quarterly basis. Now read this MCQ. It says that consider the following statement. You have to identify the correct statement. Statement 1 says Sukanya Samriddhi account scheme is launched to improve the sex ratio of India. Now it is one of the objectives, so statement 1 is correct. Statement 2 says a scheme is available to all girl children below the age of 10. Now this is also a correct statement. Statement 3 says schemes function under the Ministry of Women and Child Development, which is an incorrect statement as this scheme functions under Ministry of Finance. So through elimination you can eliminate options B, C and D and correct answer would be A. That is 1 and 2 only. Now this article featured on page number 8 of the Hindu newspaper and talks about the recent accident met by ALH Dhruv helicopter. Now the checkered history of India's indigenous advanced light helicopter, that is ALH Dhruv, touched a low when Dhruv IN 709 in the Indian Navy's newly acquired fleet was on routine flight. Reportedly experienced a sudden loss of power and rapid loss of height close to the coast of Mumbai. So in this discussion we will be taking up some important information related to ALH Dhruv as UPSC previously has asked question based on Agni missiles as well as INS Astra Dharani, which was a torpedo launch and recover vessel. So ALH Dhruv is a twin-engine, multi-role, multi-mission new generation helicopter in the 5.5 ton weight class. The basic helicopter is produced in skid version and wheeled version. Dhruv is type certified for military operations by the Center for Military Airworthiness Certification and civil operations by the Director General of Civil Aviation, that is DGCA. Certification of the utility military variant was completed in 2002 and that of the civil variant was completed in 2004. The major variants of Dhruv are classified as Dhruv Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 and Mark 4. Dhruv has also been supplied to Nepal Army, Mauritius Police and Maldives. And as you have read that it is a multi-role helicopter, it can be used as passenger or commuter helicopter for VIP travel, casualty evacuation, underslung load, rapid deployment of forces, logistic air support, search and rescue as well as for training purposes. So that's all for today's discussion. Stay tuned for more such updates.